Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and Nintendo might have to abandon their key card setup that they've got going right now because I don't think it's panning out for them the way that they anticipated. And I think that this was a move that was pretty much made to kind of pigeonhole people into primarily buying first party games, which in Nintendo's case is not necessarily a bad thing because they have an amazing lineup of first party franchises. We've seen the reaction that people have had to Mario Kart World, and I think overall it's been generally accepted and appreciated. And I think people generally like Mario Kart, the new one. You do have a lot of people who feel like a lot of the features presented in Mario Kart World and a lot of just like the stuff that feels a little gimmicky, a lot of people feel like it could have been introduced on the original Switch, on the Switch 1, but nevertheless, people are appreciating Mario Kart World for what it is. And then obviously, with the upcoming Donkey Kong Bonanza, I think that's something else that has a lot of people really in a space of anticipation. So Nintendo is going to do what they've always done with their first party titles, which is a good job, but kind of pigeonholing third party game providers into either a really small cartridge in terms of space or a really large cartridge. It's a pigeonhole mechanism, right? Because most games are going to require more than 2 gigs of data, but they're not going to be big enough to need 64 gigs. And those are the only 2 cartridge options that Nintendo is offering at this time. And so it's really putting a lot of third party developers into the key card situation. And like I said, key cards, the sales for third party key card games have been somewhat underwhelming. And it has me thinking, who is the key card for? Who is the Nintendo key card made for? Who is it designed for? I think that the key card is meant for gamers who want to make the Nintendo Switch their primary gaming device, and maybe they don't have any other console or any other option for playing games. And so the key card allows Nintendo to have a controlled environment for third party support, right? They can control it and they can ensure how the revenue is split via the key card. Now, I heard someone make the comment where they said that instead of buying a game that requires a key card, they'd rather just download the game and play the game on Steam. And I thought that that was a very interesting concept because if if gamers who do prefer to play third party games decide to go that route, it would make sense for them to just get another gaming device that will allow them to play those third party games at a fraction of the price. Because if you're going to pay Nintendo prices for third party games that you can get for a fraction of the price on Steam or on any other platform, then that makes sense. But what you've essentially done to the Switch 2 as a console then is you've kind of reduced it to kind of like a sidekick console. In my opinion, if you're only playing or primarily playing first party games on the Nintendo Switch 2, then there's no way that that can be your primary console. The Switch 2 can't be your primary console. You're going to have a PlayStation 5, you're going to have a Steam Deck, an Xbox. You're going to have to have something else that will allow you to play those third party games uh, and actually own them, because a lot of gamers are at the same time collectors, and collectors do not feel like they're really purchasing anything worth collecting in a key card. They don't feel like they have anything. A lot of people say, well, at least you have some type of physical representation of the game. At least you have, the plastic and the cover art, and at least you have some type of a cartridge which can be handed to someone else, I guess. And as long as that person has internet, then they can play the game too. But gamers who have been playing video games, I don't know, for at least the last 10 years, even, we're used to having some type of physical game where you can play the game and it isn't fully dependent on the internet. A lot of people have complained in the past about games, requiring patches and updates. And even I myself, I've had that complaint ever since the seventh generation. Once the 360 was introduced, once the PlayStation 3 was introduced, you know, I kind of had my complaints about updates and things of that nature. That's why, in my opinion, I feel like Generation 6, the sixth generation, the generation of the GameCube, the PlayStation 2, the original Xbox, the Dreamcast, that's why, in my opinion, that's probably next to Generation 4, the sixth generation is the greatest gaming generation, in my opinion, because it was the best disc based gaming generation that had the best graphics for its time without all of the internet nuance and patches and updates. If you got a game for the PlayStation 2 and it was buggy, it was buggy. That was it. You dealt with it and you appreciated the game nonetheless. Same thing with the GameCube. If you picked up a GameCube game and it was buggy and you dealt with it. You didn't have, you know, you weren't concerned about patching it or anything like that. It was, the game was the game. You know, nothing's perfect, and you could accept that, yeah, there might be a portion of the game that has a really bad glitch or something like that. And, you know, sometimes you would even exploit those glitches to, you know, to your advantage. But I think that, you know, now here we have it with the Switch 2. It's not even about patches and updates. It's about that you need the internet to basically download the game. It's really just an access key, is what the key card is. And I think it's that, you know, people's dislike and distaste and disdain for this type of uh, delivery method for a video game. I don't think people are appreciative of it, and I don't think they're really going to accept it. And so I think that, you know, Nintendo is either going to have to abandon this strategy and, you know, offer third-party developers more options when it comes to the cartridge sizes that they can use to port their games to uh, the Switch 2, or if Nintendo sticks to their guns and they continue to roll with this, I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot of people treat the Switch 2 like a sidekick console. The Switch 2 will not be their main console the way the Switch 1 was. And yeah, was the Switch 1 the most powerful? No. Was the Switch 1 able to keep up with, you know, the PlayStation 5 and or even maybe the PlayStation 4 in terms of horsepower and things like that? Probably not. But at least you had a lot of options for the Switch 2. At least you were able to purchase a lot of really great physical games for the Switch 2 and play for the original Switch. At least you were able to purchase a wide variety of physical games that were fully on the cartridge for the Switch 2 with third-party support, and actually play and keep those games and build a library. And this is just something that you're not going to be able to do with the Switch 2. And so I'm really intrigued to see how this pans out as years go on. Is Nintendo going to stick with this model, or are they going to acquiesce and say, all right, you know, we need to offer third party developers more options in terms of cartridge sizes so that we can, you know, get these more fully physical games on our platforms so that we don't lose um, our market share of customers who want to experience third party support with full physical games. Or, you know, because people are going to make one of two choices. They're either going to buy the game physically on a system that they can have and keep it physically, or they're going to say, you know what, if I'm downloading the game, I might as well just download it for a fraction of the price and download it on Steam and just keep the Switch as like a side console, or just keep it for first party games that I allow my kids to play, but the Switch 2 is not going to be my main console. I think this is a very interesting thought process, and I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Do you think the Switch 2 at this stage of the game can be your main console with the key card situation, or do you think Nintendo is reducing themselves to like a side console? I'm interested to know your thoughts. Let me know down in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.